Peace. I want to say I thank everybody who's been checking the content out. In the last 8 months, I've gained over 500 subs. I appreciate y'all. This video is going to be on the before Black Wall Street. A lot of us talk about the destruction, but we don't talk about the before. In the recording of this video, it took me a couple of days to put it together, but I had my daughter with me, and in the process, you'll hear my voice kind of change because she was asleep at certain times when I was recording, so I apologize for that. But I'm not gonna hold y'all. I'm gonna jump straight into it. Peace. Peace and love, peace and love, peace and love. I'm back with another one. This is from the Uncrowned Community Builder. We're gonna go over Barney Cleaver. He was the first so-called black male police officer in Tulsa, Oklahoma. He was there during the 1921 massacre. He was actually the officer on the scene when the outbreak took place. If you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. If you're a returning viewer, as I always say, I appreciate you checking the content out, staying consistent with me, helping me get this platform going. Without holding y'all, we're gonna jump straight into it. Peace and love, peace and love, peace and love.
On behalf of Akuno Sankofa Bay, you know what I'm saying? Jay, where you at? We're trying to help our people elevate. Hope. H-O-P-E. We're giving them hope. We doing what we gotta do, you know? Every day, one step at a time, man. We're gonna make it happen. Helping our people elevate. Yeah. Sometimes I practice focus, thought, and meditate. I'm trying to come with other ways to help our people elevate and seeking knowledge, make me levitate. The lifted mental state is what results from how we orchestrate. This for the family's sake. Let's self-reflect and self-evaluate. And every day, make sure the steps you take, you calculate. Receive a master's fate. I know I can't exist without the hate, but that's okay. I balance that with higher self today. Success is on this way, and after that, my flesh can pass away.
Ottawa, or O.W. Gurley is remembered, was one of the wealthiest men in Tulsa, Oklahoma before the 1921 massacre destroyed his property and forced him to flee. Ottawa Gurley was born on Christmas Day in 1868 to freed slaves in Huntsville, Alabama. Gurley grew up in Pine Bluff, Arkansas. He was self-educated and eventually married his childhood sweetheart, Emma. After a brief time as a teacher, he worked at the U.S. Postal Service. In 1893, Gurley participated in the Cherokee Outlet land rush in Indian Territory and staked a claim in Perry, Noble County. Gurley ran unsuccessfully for treasurer of Noble County, but later became principal of the town school and operated a general store in the community. In 1905, Gurley and his wife sold their property in Noble County and moved 80 miles to the oil boom town of Tulsa. Gurley purchased 40 acres of the land in North Tulsa and established his first business, a rooming house on a dusty road that would become Greenwood Avenue. He subdivided his plot into residential and commercial lots and eventually opened a grocery store. As the community grew around him, Gurley prospered. Between 1910 and 1920, the black population in the area he had purchased grew from 2,000 to nearly 9,000 in a city with a population of 72,000. The black community had a large working class population, as well as doctors, lawyers, and other professionals who provided services to them. Soon the Greenwood section was dubbed Negro Wall Street by Tuskegee educator Booker T. Washington. Greenwood, now called Black Wall Street, was nearly self-sufficient with black-owned businesses, many initially financed by Gurley, ranging from brickyards and theaters to a chartered airplane company. Gurley built the Gurley Hotel at 112 North Greenwood and rented out spaces to smaller businesses. His other properties included a two-story building at 119 North Greenwood, which housed a Masonic Lodge and Black Employment Agency. He was also one of the founders of the Vernon AME Church. Gurley's prosperity ended in 1921. Racial tension in Tulsa, which had been rising since the Red Summer of 1919, finally erupted on May 30, 1921. Dick Rowland, a black teenager, was accused of sexually assaulting Sarah Page, a white woman. In response, a white mob formed intent on lynching Rowland, who was held at the county courthouse. Gurley, a black sheriff deputy charged with patrolling the black community, tried to make peace as racial tensions flared. When blacks vowed to protect Rowland from the lynching and descended onto the county courthouse, a scuffle between a white man and a black man erupted into gunfire and sparked what many would call the Tulsa Massacre. By the time the massacre ended on the morning of June 2nd, approximately 300 black people were killed, Black Wall Street was burned to the ground, and Gurley had lost the majority of his fortune, estimated to be nearly $200,000. John B. Stratford was born in Freeman in Versailles, Kentucky in 1861. His father, J.C. Stratford, was a former slave who had been emancipated and was living in Stratford, Ontario, Canada, but who returned to the U.S. and was in Versailles when his son was born. Not much is known about J.B. His early life before his graduation from Oberlin College in 1896 and Indiana Law School in 1899. Stratford was a shrewd businessman. While living in Lawrenceburg, Kentucky, and in St. Louis, Missouri, he ran pool halls, bathhouses, shoe shine parlors, and boarding houses. Stratford migrated to Indian Territory, now Oklahoma, in 1899 with his wife Augusta and settled in the newly founded town of Tulsa, eventually becoming one of the most prominent individuals in the town. He got involved in the building of the all-black Greenwood section of Tulsa with another early settler, O.W. Gurley, as they both built fortunes in the real estate and rental units. By World War I, Greenwood had become what many called the Black Wall Street of America, meaning it was one of the most prosperous concentrations of black businesses in any community in the nation. Its booming economic was based on a large working class of African American men and women who supported numerous businesses. Stratford also became a civil rights activist for local African Americans. He filed a lawsuit against the St. Louis and San Francisco Railway Company for failing to provide proper accommodations for black travelers, and he publicly opposed lynching and many other new Jim Crow laws enacted when Oklahoma became a state in 1907. On June 1st, 1918, Stratford opened a luxury 54-room Stratford Hotel at 301 North Greenwood Avenue. It was the largest black-owned and operated hotel in Oklahoma and one of the few black-owned hotels in the United States. The Stratford building had a dining room, a gambling room, a salon, and a large hall for events such as the live music. By 1920, Stratford had become the richest black man in Tulsa, owning over 15 rental properties and an apartment building along with the hotel. When the Tulsa Massacre began on June 1st, 1921, where an estimated 300 blacks were killed by white rioters, Stratford stood in front of his hotel armed with a rifle until he was overwhelmed by the white mob that had invaded the community. Eventually, the entire black commercial district, all the buildings along the 34-block area on and near Greenwood Avenue, were destroyed, including the Stratford Hotel. Although the damage was clearly done by the white mob, Stratford and 20 other black people were indicted for inciting a riot. Stratford's son, attorney C.F. Stratford, posted bail, but fearing for his life, Stratford jumped bail and escaped to Independence, Kansas before finally settling in Chicago, Illinois. For the next few years, he and his son fought his extradition to Tulsa. While in Chicago, Stratford formed a new group of investors to build a luxury hotel, but the project ran out of money and the building was never completed. He did own a candy store, a barbershop, and a pool hall, but he never duplicated his success in Tulsa. J.B. Stratford died in Chicago on December 22nd, 1935. In 1996, a Tulsa jury acquitted Stratford of all his charges related to the Tulsa race riot. Barney Cleaver, born on January 2nd, 1867, he was born in Newborn, Virginia. He was accomplished in the area of legal. He later died on August 29th, 1932. As a proponent of racial uplift, Andrew J. Smitherson, editor and publisher of the Tulsa Star newspaper, often published biographic stories of Tulsa black citizens. The following is an excerpt from an article that appeared in August 19, 1914's edition of Tulsa Star. Barney S. Cleaver, the first African-American policeman in Tulsa, was born in Newbern, Virginia in 1865. The actual date was January 2nd, 1867. In Newbern, he attended public schools until he was 15. He then moved to Charleston, West Virginia, where he initially worked on a steamer and later worked in the coal mines. As an Oklahoma and Gulf Coal Company employee, he served as an immigrant agent, bringing more than 4,000 employees from West Virginia to Oklahoma. While living in Colgate, Oklahoma, he was appointed Special Deputy U.S. Marshal under Captain Grady. He moved to Tulsa in 1907, was first appointed city patrolman, and later became Deputy Sheriff under Sheriff McCullough. Deputy Sheriff Cleaver and his wife, Vernon Wren, lived in 508 North Greenwood Street in 1914 and owned interest in the building across the street from the home, the Cleaver Cherry Building. The insurance on the home and the Cleaver Cherry Building shows the property to be worth about $26,000. Subsequent articles about Cleaver in the January 9, 1915 Tulsa Star reported that Cleaver had opened a detective agency in the building he owned, the Cleaver Cherry Building. The firm, the Colored Detective Association, was said to be the first colored-owned company in the country. Later, he received a state charter for the Barney Cleaver Detective Agency, which was said to be worth $1,000. Cleaver cited numerous stories in the Tulsa Star that relate to his work as a police officer and deputy sheriff. He did not always enjoy the full support in the black community, although he was credited with keeping order in Little Africa, the term used for the black community in Tulsa. Cleaver was actually terminated from his police position in May of 1912. According to the Tulsa Star, the dismissal was political. He was later hired as a deputy sheriff. It is reported that Cleaver twice convinced a black man who came to the Tulsa jailhouse to protect a young black man, Dick Rowland, from a white mob to leave the courthouse. However, a third time, when a group of black men returned to the courthouse, the incident occurred that reportedly lit the fuse initiating the Tulsa race riot of 1921. Cleaver later testified in a requirement regarding the riot that the men had laughed at him and threatened to beat him. Like other prosperous black Tulsans, Cleaver lost his home and property on Greenwood Street in the riot. Mary Horn, inducted 2017. Mary Horn was the Tulsa Police Department's first African-American female officer. She was hired in 1939 at the age of 42 and served for 23 years. She patrolled some of the more dangerous areas in the city. She was awarded Officer of the Year in 1958 for her work in solving a sexual assault of a 6-year-old child. Horn retired in 1962 and died in 1987 at the age of 89. Her survivors include her son Kermit, who was the first African-American officer promoted to lieutenant, and a son, Clifford, who was one of the Tulsa Fire Department's first African-American firefighters. Remembering Dr. Andrew C. Jackson and the Tulsa Race Massacre. June 1st, 2021 marked the 100th anniversary of the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre. Recently, National Library of Medicine archivist John Reese fielded a reference email from John Adams seeking historical materials about his relative Dr. Andrew C. Jackson, a prominent black physician working and living in the Greenwood section of Tulsa that was the epicenter of the event. Dr. Jackson was murdered during the massacre, an event that was widely reported in newspapers and medical journals across the country. We are grateful to Mr. Adams for sharing his research and his family history related to his major event in American history. Tulsa historian Scott Ellsworth's Death in the Promised Land opens up the story of a young Bill Williams asking his father why they relocated from Mississippi to Oklahoma. Well, his father answered, I came out of the Promised Land for black freedom and young black men and women moving out of the formerly Confederate state. Indian land was the Promised Land, a place to find that piece of the American dream. John Wesley and Lula Tom Williams were among Greenwood's first residents. They met in John's home state in Mississippi. Lula was born in Tennessee and made their way to Tulsa in about 1903. The U.S. Census from 1910 lists the couple as being married for 5 years. Since there were no black doctors or hospitals in the neighborhood at the time, they traveled to Hot Springs, Arkansas for Lula to give birth to their son, William Danforth Williams, born on March 15, 1905. John had a talent for machines. In 1909, he secured a position operating the steam-powered chilling equipment at the Thompson Ice Cream Company located at 17th West Archer. His skill was in such demand and the job paid so well that by 1911, the family purchased Greenwood's first car, a brand new Chalmers 30 Pony Tony named for its 30 horsepower, inline 4-cylinder engine. The car cost $1,600 at the time, about $53,000 in today's dollars. It boasted a 3-speed manual transmission, comfortable leather seats, and a top speed of 50 miles per hour. One of the most well-recognized photographs of Greenwood's prosperity featured John and Lula in a prized automobile, dressed elegantly with 6-year-old Williams in the backseat looking at the camera. John wasted no time learning to do all the repairs and maintenance on the car, soon finding himself earning money on the side working on other people's cars as well. By 1912, he had so much extensive clientele that he resigned from his job at the ice cream company to open his own auto repair garage. Williams' one-stop garage at 420 East Archer served both black and white car owners from all over Tulsa. Lola Williams also made a career change. Leaving her teaching job in Fisher, Oklahoma, located just west of Sand Springs, she opened a confectionery on the first floor of the 3-story building the Williams built at 102 North Greenwood Ave from the profit of the auto mechanic shop. The family lived on the second floor and rented the third floor space as offices for the attorneys. The Williams confectionery was Lula's great pride. The store sold candy, ice cream, and featured a fully stocked soda fountain. Her shop quickly became the most popular hangout for teens and young couples of all races. Journalist Tim Madagan writes in his book, The Burning Massacre, Destruction in the Tulsa Race Riot in 1921, that the word around Tulsa was that there were more proposals for marriage that happened at Williams' confectionery than any other place in the city. By 1914, the Williams were indeed living life in the promised land that John had described to his son. John's auto repair shop made a decent profit and the couple earned money from the confectionery as well as the commercial rental business. The family set their sights on a new entrepreneurial goal, opening a movie theater. The Empress Theater opened around June 1913 at 17th West 3rd Street. At this time, the movie industry was in its infancy. Hollywood, California was just beginning to produce its first film. With so few films to show, early movie theaters were built with the performance stages and featured musical vaudevilles, acts as well as films. Lola Williams opened Williams Dreamland Theater in 1914 at 127 North Greenwood. The new theater had a seating capacity of 750, with movie tickets costing 15 cents. That same year, Tate Brady opened a conventional hall, later named Tulsa Theater, just a few blocks to the west. Lola's entrepreneurial spirit had paid off. The Dreamland Theater quickly became just as possible an attraction as the confectionery. The movie industry boomed as well. After Dreamland Theater's first year in business, film studios were forming all around the country. Not only was filming becoming more established as an industry, but it was also becoming quite diverse. All Black film production companies were finding great success during these pioneer years. Among these were the Lincoln Motion Picture Company based in Omaha, Nebraska, Chicago-based Film Corporation, and Norman Studios in Jacksonville, Florida. Norman Studios' first film with an all-black cast was The Green-Eyed Monster, a 1919 action film in which two feuding railroad tycoons sought to settle a fight over their shared love interest by racing their trains. The man with the winning train would win the girl. Movie posters promised 5 smashing reels of thrills, action punch, and was widely popular with the Black audience for many years. Simon Barry. Simon Barry was born in Mississippi on July 6, 1890. Not much is known about his early life besides the fact that he taught auto mechanics at West Tennessee College before moving to Tulsa. It's also not clear exactly why or when he moved to Tulsa, but there are records of him being there in 1915. For example, he married Alma Pittman in Tulsa on December 19th that year. At the time, taxi services in Tulsa were only available for white people. In response, Barry used his own Model T convertible and started a jitney service for a nickel a ride. A jitney was a car that you hailed, told the driver where you wanted to go, and got in with other passengers. Barry would take as many passengers as he could, stuff in, or have hang on. Besides his jitney service, he also built a mechanic garage where he trained Black mechanics. Simon Barry was also one of the entrepreneurs that stayed in Tulsa and helped rebuild Greenwood after the Race Massacre. Barry got his pilot license and bought an open cockpit airline in 1925, after which he and his business partner James Lee Northington launched a charter airline service. He bought some buses and started a bus line, getting a license to operate and franchise in 1928. In 1926, he purchased 13 acres of land and transformed them into a park that included a rose garden, swimming pool, dance hall, and picnic grounds. He gifted the park to the city of Tulsa in 1929. There isn't much information about Simon Barry after the late 1920s, and it is estimated that he passed away sometime in 1941. Tulsa Black community icon Mabel B. Little dies at 104. Mabel B. Little, who had survived the 1921 Tulsa race riot to become a matriarch of the Tulsa Black community, died January 13th. She was 104. Little, the granddaughter of the former slaves, came to Tulsa in 1913 from Boley, then one of the several dozen Black towns in Oklahoma. With her mother ill, she began working at the Brady Hotel for $20 a month. The following year, she met and married Presley Little. Little opened her first beauty shop in 1917 and continued in the business for more than 50 years. Between 1918 and 1927, Little and her husband adopted 11 children, most of whom were the natural children of family members. But her husband died 1 month after the last children came to live with the family, leaving her to raise the children alone. She adopted a 12th child in the mid-1940s. Little also helped other needy children in Tulsa. During the Great Depression, she took a job at McDonnell Douglas and followed the aviation industry from Tulsa to Wichita, Kansas to Los Angeles. In her life story, Fire on Mount Zion, My Life and History as a Black Woman in America, Little tells of growing up in a segregated society and recounts the riot's destruction.
We think about it as a singular event that happened to a singular group of people, but it's like it really did have a ripple effect that's impacted all of us across the nation, even to this day. You think about how that may have impacted the Great Migration at the time, who went to California, for example, who may have stayed had they thought that they really had an opportunity to rebuild there. To think that over or approximately 600 businesses were destroyed in like a 2-day period And no one was ever, from my understanding, no one was ever prosecuted, arrested even, right? And no one was ever paid for any of the damages or the property that they lost, which, it's just so tragic to think about how many Black millionaires were there, how many people were on their way to becoming millionaires, a totally independent Black community that was erased just because people were jealous of what they had. I first, came across the story while doing family research, right? And trying to learn more about my grandparents who had settled in Oklahoma. And it's, had never heard of the story before. It's very personal to me in that regard. And just thinking about the way it impacted my own family directly, right? As far as people who live there, and indirectly, as far as, family that lived in some of the all Black towns nearby. My work is usually about community of some sort, right? First starting with the idea of family and, expanding outwards from there. So with Tulsa, when I was there photographing it, literally felt like I was just hanging out with my family, taking pictures to document like who they are and where they exist and sort of the mood or the progress, if you will, of the area where they are, right? Sort of like you're putting together a giant family album is what it felt like, which I didn't expect. On one hand, I didn't know what to expect going there, but, to be able to make those sort of instant connections, especially finding out that people actually know my cousins, they know family of mine. It was really like, okay, so people are just like, wow, you really are a part of this, even though I didn't grow up there. So I think that sort of really changed my perspective going there and the way that I approached making the work. And to be honest, by it being that, it felt very much more personal to me than the work that I typically make already. It almost felt like you're in anthropology class or something, right? Like you get to go out in the field and actually see and touch the places that, we've read about, and to, get to know the people who are direct descendants of the tragedy that happened there was, just mind-blowing in a way, right? Just to see that they're still there, the resilience of that community, and that they're also still passing down the idea of entrepreneurship and, handing businesses down through the family was just, I don't know, it was really empowering in a lot of ways that I didn't expect. Being able to see that, as people are walking by and some people encountering spirits, right? And it's but they still are able to smile, right? It's there's still sort of this energy there that it's almost like you can touch it, that positive change is not only happening, but that it's going to be bigger and potentially better than whatever existed there before. But it also stands as a reminder, right? Especially as we start talking about remembering again, that our communities have always done this, have always been able to rebuild and to be strong when we work together. And so that's the piece that I hope people take away the most from everything that's happening there now. Just to remember that when we come together, we're always stronger. As people learn about this history, I hope that it opens more doors to reconciliation, not only for the people in Tulsa and Greenwood in particular, but for all of us, here in the US and across the diaspora who have suffered from, oppressive systems for centuries now.